right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm so glad you're here to join us for our session called Glocal for the Win, Cross-Sector Partnerships for Collective Impact. In our conversation today, we're going to showcase real-world examples where non-for-profits, game developers, foundations, and educators collaborate to address local needs while leveraging global platforms. I'm going to introduce myself first, and then I'll get to our panelists. I'm Susanna Pollack. I'm president of Games for Change. We are an international organization that believes in the power of games beyond entertainment, whether it's in education, healthcare, other social and environmental needs, that games can drive real-world impact. Cross-sector partnerships is really core to our theories of change, and I'm so happy to be able to leading this conversation. So I'll start first by introducing our lovely panelists here, and then we're going to get into the conversation. We have Allison Matthews. So Allison Matthews, if you don't know, leads Minecraft education at Mojang Studios with a mission that's dear to my heart, to build a better world through the power of play. Now, with Minecraft being over 15 years old and the biggest video game platform in the world, the opportunities to leverage this popular platform for learning and impact is something we all really should be paying attention to and see where the opportunities are. And Antonio Tijerino, we'll call him Tony. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Tony is the president and CEO of the Hispanic Heritage Foundation, which we also might refer to as HHF in this conversation. It's a national nonprofit recognized for its impact on education, workforce, social impact, and culture by entities like the White House and the US Congress. The partnerships that Tony has established to build HHF's work is very inspiring, and I'm really looking forward to having him elaborate on that today. So thank you for joining us. So I'd like to start first by defining glocal, which is sometimes people think about it in very different ways, but I'd like you to think about it as the interplay between global and local perspectives, and how we can explore how global trends and influences are adapted and to fit local needs and find authenticity. I'm going to start with a question for both of you. Which is really to frame this whole session as what are we solving for? And why are these kind of partnerships critical? And in your answer, feel free to talk about your work and why you think this conversation is important at this point in time. Let's start with you, Tony.
Sure, thank you very much. And we're part of Games for Change. So I want to thank you for your leadership and your work.
Thank you.
I think the partnerships, we have to get more creative, more clever, more innovative in terms of filling some of the gaps that are being left every single day in education. And we're able to do that with the biggest game in the world. We feel privileged that we've been brought along on this ride. And so it's leveraging what we all do best. When we are approached for a partnership where the platform has already been built, the curriculum is already in place, the brand is already there, and our job is then to connect to communities as trusted partners, specifically in the Latino community and beyond. It is an opportunity for us to truly leverage what we all do best and to be able to then support youth at home and have the teacher's guide and the parent's guide, which is critical, to be able to do it across 29 different languages. That is a remarkable opportunity for us to have that impact beyond what we normally would do, thanks to our partnership with Minecraft. So I think it's real, and Games for Change. I think it's really important to be able to leverage what we all do.
Right, acknowledging the expertise that sits in different fields and work collaboratively. I agree completely. Allison, what about you?
So my team and I are focused on a mission of taking the best-selling video game of all time and turning it into a powerful teaching and learning platform. And so all of us on the team are in education because we want to have a positive impact on the future generation. And so sometimes that means filling gaps in the curriculum in a fun way, bringing joy to the curriculum. Sometimes that means supporting attendance and engagement in schools. But I want to layer on sort of other factors that are also pretty critical right now. So many of us in the room didn't have to deal with sort of the craziness that young people today are dealing with. So some examples being, technology is advancing faster than we can adapt to. There are impacts of climate change happening all over the world every day. And then social media is surfacing these stressors to us all day, every day. So we think it's super important to support educators in arming young people with the skills that they need in order to navigate this complicated world. So if you want, I can give sort of an example
I would
of
love
something
you
we've
to.
done.
Please, yes.
Okay. So a few years ago, we recognized that there was a gap in curriculum around climate change when we were seeing sort of lots of impacts in the news every day. So we started by partnering with UNESCO. We put out a global call, global build challenge call to students around the world to imagine a world where humans live in peace with nature. So we got thousands of video responses back to that challenge, and they ranged from, you know, some amazing scientific ideas, some gorgeous designs like huge flowers that captured carbon. One kid thought we should make everything out of mushrooms because it's very sustainable. And what we realized through this exercise was it was a good experiment, but all of these powerful videos were just then living with us. And so we thought, okay, how can we then evolve this so that we're engaging local communities in issues that are facing them? And so we found an organization called C40 Cities. It's an organization that works with mayors and cities around the world. And we started with one city, Stockholm, and we worked with the mayor of Stockholm on a challenge similar to what we had done globally, but something that's relevant to their community. And we challenged the students in Stockholm to invent a more sustainable version of their city. So the winners of that competition actually got to present their ideas to the mayor of Stockholm, her sustainability team, and then mayors across Europe. So these young people's voices were being heard. And now we've seen that type of collaboration, that partnership, has launched in cities across the world, like Buenos Aires, Schwane, Toronto. And then I don't know if we've got folks in the room from cities like New York City, or LA, Calgary, and Toronto in Canada, who now run these programs on their own every year because they see the power of engaging young people in real-world issues that are affecting them, but in partnership with leaders in the city that can then take action.
Well, what you just said about engaging local communities and finding opportunities to ensure that the program relates to, you know, the things that kids are, right, local issues, what kids are passionate about and concerned about, that leads to my next question, which has to do with authenticity and authorship in programs. We're talking about programs that hopefully are large scale, whether it's national or international, but how to ensure that the partnerships resonate and the program resonates at a local level. Let's see. Tony, you want to talk a little bit?
Sure. In terms of that authenticity, a lot of it is the input from the student, and that's what I love when Allison just said, that you actually got your guidance from a student. That is the best way to reach certain communities. When we put together Latin Explorers, it was specifically with needs that were coming across, whether it was environmental, whether it was relief, whether it was civic engagement. We were able to work backwards from what the youth wanted us to do. And the local part of it is very interesting because once we had the game established, we were able to take it into different communities all over the country. I think one of the pictures that you're going to show is from when we did it in Milwaukee, and we've done it in Memphis and all of these other amazing cities that have a burgeoning community. And it goes beyond the Latino community. It's called Latin Explorers, but when it's being played by 29 different languages, in 29 different languages. You're going beyond Spanish and English and Portuguese. And that's the universal part of it, that a young person is going to relate to it. And all of my children play Minecraft, but especially my 14-year-old right now. And that's one of the games that we actually approved of, because she's learning skills, she's gaining confidence, she's getting creative about how to address social issues within the Minecraft world that now she can take into the outside world. And that is a remarkably empowering effect you can have on a child, because they're the ones that are building this world. You're just providing the platform for it. And that's the part that I'm really grateful that we've been a part of this effort.
Oh, please, go ahead.
I think we have.
Oh, we have a video. Okay. Yes, the Latin Explorers video. Would you mind showing that? Thank you. Thank you for reminding me. Are we going to be, can we show the...
Listos para la aventura. Experience la cultura y la herencia hispana with Latin Explorers 2 from Minecraft Education and the Hispanic Heritage Foundation, and learn about the incredible achievements of Latinos in the real world. To celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month, we've introduced 3 new iconic characters. Get on your feet with Gloria Estefan. Reach for the stars with Dr. Ellen Ochoa. And fight for migrant workers' rights alongside Monica Ramirez. This record-breaking singer, pioneering astronaut, and courageous lawyer will inspire and compel you to stand up for yourself and others. As you discover more about these fearless trailblazers, you'll practice leadership, build empathy, and join forces to face new challenges. Learning about others helps us learn about ourselves. Where will your passion take you? ¿Están listos? Download.
I just have to say the power of Minecraft, that you can reach out to global icons and astronauts and community workers, and they're the ones that are coming up to you going, I want to be a part of the next game.
Isn't that amazing?
That is remarkable.
Absolutely amazing. Well, I'm going to jump in here and talk a little bit about a similar experience that, Tony, that we had, which led us to work with Minecraft as well. So I'm going to jump back and forth between leading this conversation and contributing it, if that's okay with you. I think I mentioned earlier, so Games for Change is not a game studio, but we do help other organizations, nonprofits, foundations, government agencies to figure out how to leverage games in order to achieve their impact goals. And we had this opportunity to work with the Nobel Peace Center, which is a museum affiliated with the Nobel Peace Prize, located in Oslo. And our approach to cross-sector partnerships is to always include subject matter experts, right, in the development of content. And we often are invited to help develop the game strategy, which is what we did. Initially, the impact that they wanted to achieve was to have more of a footprint and more people that come through the museum that physically come to Oslo and learn about the values of Alfred Nobel and be inspired by the different Nobel Peace Prize laureates. So we worked with them on helping them understand what's possible in games. We came up with a couple of game concepts, and it became very clear that the environment in which this experience would have the most impact would be in an existing platform that already reached millions of kids around the world, and we thought it would live very well in a Minecraft environment. And we were very pleased to know that our friends at Minecraft Education were also very excited about this idea of inspiring young people and how they can become active citizens, how they become peace builders, and demonstrate that the smallest of actions can have real-world, impact. And that seemed completely aligned with your strategy at Minecraft Education. And I'd like to hear from your perspective about that kind of partnership between a major institution like the Nobel Peace Prize, the laureates, those subject matter experts, and then the game.
Yeah, it certainly is one of the favorite projects that I've done. Thank you very much. And so, thinking about, one of the things I would love for our viewers to take away is, how could you think about these sorts of partnerships, because we're throwing out sort of global brands and big names and things which could seem maybe tough to get started with. So for this Peace Builders project, we started by, when we were approached by Games for Change, thinking through, if we were to do some sort of a partnership with the Nobel team, what is the problem that we're trying to solve? Because these folks won one of the most prestigious awards that you can win, and so how is there like an obvious takeaway for a student on that? So our goal was to put young people into the shoes of someone who won a Nobel Peace Prize and let them walk that journey, which for all of the Nobel laureates started in their community with actions that they took locally because they saw a problem that they wanted to solve. So focusing on that objective, then we had to get clear on, all right, what capabilities and skills do we have and where do we need to lean on this partnership? So for us, we are a game studio, and we've got some pretty talented game designers. We've got some former educators who work for the team who know how to sequence lessons. So, but what we don't have is really expertise on who the Nobel Peace Laureates are and exactly what they did in order to like eventually win a Nobel Peace Prize. So that's where the beauty of the partnership came in, both with Games for Change and also with the Nobel Peace Center, is they have relationships with the laureates themselves if they're still living, and then they also have relationships with the foundations of the laureates. So we were able to work with them once we identified which of the laureates we wanted to profile in the game. We were able to work with like the foundations or the laureates themselves to make sure that we have we had all of the authentic little details in. Like for example, with Jody Williams, she won a Nobel Prize for her work to eradicate landmines. She is still an activist living in the US, and we were able to get on a call with her and talk to her about what drove her to do this work, what turned her into an activist. And then we were even able to modify the outfit that she was wearing in the game to make sure that it was authentic to something that she would actually wear. So that was sort of that authenticity and the sort of the relevance that you were talking about.
Do you want to show a little clip? Do you mind if we do? This is of Peace Builders, which is the second in the series of games made with the Nobel Peace Center.
It looks like these villagers and illagers are on a collision course. If only there was a way to end the conflict. Luckily, in Minecraft you can with a simple command. But what about in real life? Even just one person can help bring about peace. Every year in Oslo, Norway, the Nobel Peace Prize is awarded to an individual or organization that has made a meaningful contribution to world peace. The prize is named after Alfred Nobel from Sweden. He made a fortune when he invented dynamite in 1867. To ensure his legacy was for the greatest benefit to humankind, he left most of his wealth to establish the Nobel Prizes. Now is your chance to experience what it takes to craft peace. Follow the stories of 4 groundbreaking Nobel Peace Prize laureates as you help them to avoid or mitigate conflict. Meet activist Jody Williams on her journey to rid the world of mines that kill or injure innocent people long after a war has ended. This is Archbishop Desmond Tutu. He helped bring an end to the unjust apartheid system and rebuild South Africa. Follow journalist Karl von Ossietzky as he blows the whistle on the horrors of the Nazi regime before World War II. Join the United Nations Refugee Agency as they help people who have been displaced by conflict and disaster. Minecraft Education Edition and the Nobel Peace Center.
I love that. It gives me the chills when I see it. Can you share a couple of the other? Who else was featured in this game and some of the other games? Desmond Tutu? Right.
Desmond Tutu was, and then also Malala. We did a couple of partnerships with the Nobel Peace Center, and Malala was actually a great example because she actually played the game. The Nobel Peace team got together with Malala, and they actually had her play through the experience and give us her feedback on, because all of the characters have dialogue in the game, so we wanted to make sure that the dialogue was going to be authentic to how Malala actually would speak. So that was actually a fun little side thing.
I also want to talk about how these games, both Latin Explorers and Peace Builders and Active Citizens, are used in the classroom, because you mentioned about curriculum and lesson plans, and I think it's really important to acknowledge that what's built around the game is as important as what's happening within the game. And our team, we have a team at Games for Change called G4C Learn, and they worked with Minecraft Education Edition about creating lesson plans that included activities for kids to go out in their world and make a plan, right? To take, and you said this as well, Tony, about taking what you've learned within the game and applying it in a real world setting on something that mattered to them, that taking that small step. And that, the skills, in addition to learning about these incredible people, shows that they too can make that small difference and develop the future-ready skills, right? Those skills that they're learning inherently through the game, being inspired by what's happening, with the examples by these incredible people, and understanding that they too can go out and affect that change in a manageable way. I mean, and through the educator.
And in a relatable way, too. Because one of the things that we talked about when Lila and I were first talking about these games was that we wanted guides, not gods, to be the ones that are relatable to a young person in terms of those pathways. And let's not forget the importance of the confidence for a young girl like my daughter to feel as though she can make that change. And also that right now, a whole lot of people feel helpless. You have to nurture and nourish that feeling of not being helpless to a situation. And the Nobel game sounds remarkable for that reason, that you're seeing what others are doing and making that kind of an impact. So that's important too. I was also very proud of the pathways too. Like whenever we would have a classroom, and we did it with tens of thousands of young people all over the country, including in Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C., and all these other areas and beyond, was that they also were learning about pathways, career pathways, including being in the sector, in the video gaming development area, that if you love playing video games, you're not that far away from developing a video game and also going into the tech industry, whether it's in gaming or beyond, in cyber and all these other areas. And that's one of the things that we want to instill, because 78% of all new jobs will be filled by a Latino in this country over the next 7 years. That's
78%.
almost 8 out of 10 new jobs will be filled by a Latino in this country. So it is a value proposition that you're able to train, make people feel more comfortable in terms of what those jobs are going to be like. And one of the things that we're talking about doing with Minecraft and Prodigy and others is working in the AI space, in the cyber space, in the coding space, to make sure that that workforce is prepared for those jobs that are going to advance America. This isn't a Latino thing. This is an American thing that we're trying to move forward. And again, defines that value proposition that we have for this country. But it starts when you're a child and have a chispa of an idea and the confidence to move forward with empowered sensibility and creativity. And as kids my kids are ADHD and dyslexic and have other what are called learning challenges, but they're actually superpowers, as we discussed
100%.
earlier. And they thrive in the gaming space more than any other form of education. So I'm just very grateful that we're able to support kids like mine in addition to any other kids.
Yeah. I'd like to talk about that in a few minutes, because we're deeply invested too in helping young people become creators and not just consumers, right, of this incredible art form. But I'd like to hear more about your workforce efforts and why working across sectors is so important to how you achieve what you're looking to achieve. I mean, the Hispanic Heritage Foundation is an incredible organization.
Thank you.
I mean, the breadth of your programs and your reach is just tremendous. And I'd just like to hear about how you have worked with other partners even beyond Minecraft.
Yeah, absolutely, right, right. Well, first of all, one of our partners is here with Kid Museum that we're able to actually work with teachers that are using maker learning as part of their curriculum and their portfolio in terms of being educators, as well as working with IBM, for instance, in skills building and certified programs that at the other end you then get placed into jobs that are a career pivot.
So tell me how that program actually works in effect.
Once again, it's leveraging what everyone does best.
Yep.
They already have a curriculum, if you will, and in place. We then drive the community over, support in terms of making sure that they apply and complete the courses, they get certified, and then they're able to get placed into actual job opportunities. So these are for adult learners. We're working with AT&T, reaching tens of thousands of, it's broken out into two, young people and adult learners in terms of skills building, again, for those jobs to make sure that they at least have an idea in terms of the tech industry, that you can do a quick pivot to make sure that you're part of the new economy, to be part of the new workforce that's actually right here, right now. So those are examples of other companies we work with, and Google and others, that we want to make sure that we have our community prepared for the jobs that America needs to fill beyond the traditional jobs. But we just want to make sure that we're covering all over the whole landscape of the workforce for reasons that I said. And right now, the student population in this country is about 27% are Latino. And if you get lower and lower in terms of preschool, it goes up to almost 30%. So we want to make sure.
So those numbers will continue to grow as the
Yes.
next generation gets older.
And again, so it is not just a Latino imperative, it is an American imperative that we make sure that these young people have these pathways, and that's what we do with Minecraft and now with Prodigy and others, and beyond with all these other companies that we partner with.
Can you tell me a little bit about Prodigy?
Yes, we're about to launch a program that we are going to be working with different schools, and starting with 20 different schools that we're hoping to be 20 different markets, where the schools will then have for I think middle school and high school, be certified in terms of credentialed in AI, and also in cyber and also in coding. But the AI part's very interesting because I think it's going to be one of the first of its kind, and then we're able to then have them build on it as they continue and matriculate.
So I know this is not an AI panel, there's a lot out there, but there's a lot of interesting things happening in AI, and I know you've invested in a lot of resources into supporting it.
I was going to actually add on a little bit to the Prodigy conversation, because thinking about partnerships and what makes a successful partnership, so back to that first principle of knowing your strengths and knowing what you are bringing to the table. So again, for us, we've got a game, we've got curriculum, we've got content, a lot of STEM, how to code curriculum. But then Prodigy, they're a credentialing company. So they actually put credentials on top of Minecraft education for learning to code. And then they sell those into state governments that are then used in schools, in high schools and middle schools. And so thinking about the power of bringing together, like, this is one of the core principles. If you are doing something, you have a mission. So for us, we're putting out a game-based learning platform. Prodigy has a mission. They put out credentials, and we're both addressing the same subject areas. We're not going to go into credentials. They're not going to go build a video game. It's an obvious partnership. And so that principle of, if you are already heading down the same path and you get along, then you might as well put your resources together, because you can have a multiplier effect for both of your businesses.
And then we can serve as the messenger to be able to work with Puerto Rico, to be able to work with different markets around the United States that are waiting for us to come to their schools. And that's the beauty of this, is that we're actually being asked to come to different schools, but we can leverage our partnerships to be able to bring that curriculum. We don't have to create anything.
How interesting. Well, you were a part of creating Latin Explorers.
We were in the passenger seat and didn't even give money for gas.
What you guys are talking about is something that I just love to do, and I think Games for Change does it well. It's like building coalitions, right? Coalitions of different entities across sectors with different skill sets that's going to come together, right, to support a single mission. And I think that's at the heart, really, of what we're talking about, this cross-sector partnerships, whether it's the education system, it's somebody who can actually create something, right? In this case, the game, that has the reach, too, right? So it's not just you can make a great game. It's just it has that reach. Partners like yourselves who have relationships in many places, right, that can help bring this new learning experience to audiences. And then there are the type of partnerships can really build on top of each other. And that's something that, if I may talk a little bit about a student program that we developed about 10 years ago, and I think Minecraft was part of it in those early years, and it's a game-making program. So it's centered around supporting young kids from middle school to high school, and now we have a university-age division, to learn how to become a game maker, to learn how to design games, develop those future-ready skills, and do it while making games about social issues. So we proposed, going back to presenting opportunities for young people to identify with an issue, understand how it's relevant. I think we're showing a little bit of video in the background about one of our game jams, where these young people are learning how to make games first as a tabletop. Before they even get onto a computer, it's learning about the principles of game design. They're making tabletop games, and then they apply that to platforms like Scratch or Minecraft, or if they're more advanced, something like Unity and Python, and they make games about different topics of social issues. And going back to what you were saying, Allison, at the beginning, we touch on issues like climate change, and this year our climate-related topic is about climate anxiety, about how kids feel about all this, input and of stress about what's happening in our world. And we flipped it. It's very similar to what you did back originally, having kids understand and encourage their relationship with nature. In fact, we call it Nurture Yourself with Nature, right? And they're making games about how they can improve their mental well-being by grasping, right, to understanding how they can work. But I want to get back to the partnerships part and encouraging people that you don't have to have big global partners to start programs and to start these cross-sector partnerships. We started this program 10 years ago in New York City for 20 educators, teaching them how to lead students through a game design program. And the program exists as a school year elective or unit. As we grew that program, we started working with other cities that were interested in bringing this into their cities, and worked with other local communities. And you can participate as a teacher, as a school, as a district, and now even as a student on their own. But focusing on local communities, giving them an opportunity to engage in a global program, but do it within their schools and make it home, right? Make it feel as if they are part of the program, whether it's running game jams. I mean, I'm calling it Battle of the Boroughs because that's what they call it in New York City, right? The citywide competition, right? That's a big program, but it's operated locally.
Exactly. It's and that's like sort of building on the example I gave earlier of how an idea that we had just took on a life of its own in specific communities that were really motivated to take that concept and make it their own. So in New York City, they've got Battle of the Boroughs, where each of the boroughs challenges their students to design to a specific sustainability problem in New York City. And LA is doing the same thing with Level Up LA, challenging for specific sustainability issues, but then they turn it into an esports competition. So in New York City, each of the boroughs has a winning team, and then on one day, those teams come together and compete head to head, which
sounds so fun.
Yeah, giving young people who maybe aren't playing other sports an opportunity to compete for their school as a part of a citywide event, pretty exciting. I actually would love if we could queue up the video on Schools Reinventing Cities. I think it's an awesome visual to see, like when I say designing solutions for sustainability problems, there's a great video that actually showcases that.
Great. I think we can show it.
how might you make a city safer, greener, and more just? We asked this question to more than 3 million students across 7 cities. Then we gave them a way to bring their visions to life in Minecraft and share their ideas with the world. In the Schools Reinventing Cities Challenge, a partnership between Minecraft Education and C40 Cities, students teamed up to reimagine, design, and reinvent their cities for now and the future. They crafted green rooftops in London.
Lots of the colours of roofs have been changed to white to reflect the sun's heat and help prevent global warming.
And eco-conscious affordable housing in Los Angeles.
Our buildings are sustainable because they don't run off of fossil fuels, but instead run on solar-generated electricity. We've also created a basketball court for people and residents to enjoy.
Students thought about green energy, researching options for wind and hydroelectric power. They explored better systems for waste management.
Come down here, we see water turbines being spun by the water to generate energy, and when we come over here, we see a pump pushing the water back up when the windmill is in motion.
We have added wind turbines and solar panels on many roofs to give Croydon a more sustainable source of energy. We have added charging points in multiple car parking spaces to encourage people to use electric cars and make the air in Croydon cleaner.
To reduce waste and smell, we installed a new system of trash cans that are built underground and can be pulled out. Additionally, the street will operate under a power grid that connects the solar panels with the tram lines and street lamps.
And they added thoughtful, culturally conscious elements to help their community flourish.
We shall be adding a new mosque opposite St. Michael's Church, serving as a hub for the local Muslim community and promoting diversity in religion and culture.
We have also added a community garden at the center.
Top finalists will have the chance to present these reimagined cities to their mayor. Listening to these young voices is critical. One day they'll be our urban planners, architects, city officials, mayors, and residents. And their ideas will lead to a better future for all of us. Learn more about Schools Reinventing Cities and join us.
That video brings me so much joy. I just love hearing the young people talk about their ideas. But I just wanted to really bring it home, the skills that those students demonstrated. So they did those projects in a group. So they had to learn how to plan as a team. Somebody had to be the designer. Somebody had to be, the actual builder. Somebody had to get the footage from the game and turn it into a video. And then they had to present their ideas out. So all of those really important just skills for functioning and thriving in a very complex world. But then when you look at the actual designs that they came up with, these are future urban planners. These are future architects. These are, these are people who are going to create the cities of the future, and it's just incredibly powerful. Back to the point of the climate anxiety thing that you brought up. Research shows that one of the most effective ways to combat anxiety is action, forward action. So partnerships like these that engage young people in action, that encourage them to create and design their own futures and then give them a voice, I think it's a very powerful way to address some of these issues.
I couldn't agree more, and the variety of cities that we saw, the different locales, was really, really impressive. And it's continuing this year? Typically, what time of year does it take place?
So these programs are run all over the world, and sort of the beautiful thing is there are a few that we're directly involved with now, but I think one of the, one of the metrics for a successful partnership is when it starts to take on a life of its own.
I love that. You brought that up.
Yeah, so I think we're going to be kicking off something in Jordan. Not we, but there's an event happening in Jordan. There's something happening in Shwane in Africa right now. Battle of the Boroughs is an annual event. Level Up LA is happening as we speak.
And they're being produced independently.
Yes, that's right. The schools, districts themselves, because of the energy, because of the excitement, because of those powerful learning outcomes, the districts are running with it themselves.
Right. So I want to, there's a model there that I think is a wonderful thing to consider following, is piloting something locally, right? Things can start small, right? Pilot it, get the feedback, and particularly if it's for students, have students give feedback. See how you can improve on it. See how perhaps you can grow it, still starting small. At the point at which you're really feeling confident about the program, start to expand it through partnerships and test it that way, right? See what the pain points are if they're across different cities or in different locations. And if you are able to, you grow those partnerships to the point where it can be run independently. I agree, that's a really successful outcome.
Yeah, it's really empowering for creators, it's empowering for communities to be able to take these ideas and make them their own. And I would just mention, you know, Minecraft education itself started as a community idea. Right. Before Microsoft acquired Mojang, the game studio, it was an indie studio based in Sweden. And there were teachers all over the world who were using the consumer version of the game in schools because they saw it as a powerful learning platform. So when Microsoft acquired Mojang, very shortly thereafter, we started partnering with some of those educators and brought it in as one of our core pillars for the studio. And that sort of origin story really set the tone for how we've worked ever since over the last 10 years.
Staying true to it.
Which is, because the power of educators, the power of local communities and their ideas and their individual needs, like that's what we want to supercharge, I guess.
Great. So we are going to move into a Q&A in just a few minutes. I want to remind everyone that they can add their questions to the South by Southwest EDU app, possibly, something like that. But there was a QR code where you end the session, or a link in the app where you can do that, and we're going to start answering some questions. But before we move into that, let's talk about some final remarks. Any do's and don'ts or things to keep in mind? I feel like we naturally started doing that just now, but I want to give you a chance to add.
Sure. So one thing that you should do when you're setting out for a partnership is to get very clear on the problem that you're trying to solve. Just be very clear on what you're heading out to achieve. Be very clear on what you bring to the table, what your strengths are, and where you would need to partner, both for more authenticity to what you're doing, but also for sort of local relevant action on the ground in communities. I would say do not get into a partnership where you anticipate conflict. If there's conflict between the organizations, whether that's your objectives aren't aligned or whatever other reason, that is a distractor from the ultimate purpose of the partnership. And I would also say do not take on too much too soon. Start small with a little pilot locally with one school, one community, and test it out. Try it out and iterate, experiment until you really figure out what that winning combination is before you go big.
Great. Tony, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think parental engagement is critical, and for them to buy in. And the beauty of Minecraft is that almost seems inherent. That's one of the games that has been highlighted to a lot of parents as one that it's actually a very positive way for a child to be able to explore, to be able to create, to be able to solve problems, and to also have fun at the same time. Also, teacher engagement. When it's not just about the kids, it's also about the educators having something else in their arsenal that they can leverage in terms of ultimately trying to reach a child. And again, encouraging more creators, not just consumers. This is one of the few games that you actually are not consuming completely. You're actually creating what you consume, and there's something beautiful in that.
That's great. All right, I think we want to move over to questions, which are going to be prompts to some of your kind of closing comments, because I see some common threads here. Let's talk about the advantages of video games. Question is, what unique advantages do video games bring to tackling complex global issues like climate change and social justice? what is it in the, like, I guess it's thinking about the gameplay mechanics in some way. Allison, do you want to address that?
So if you're talking about a game that's an immersive 3D experience, then there's an opportunity to like live in that world, walk in the footsteps of the characters in that world, and sort of feel that authentic feeling of the space and the place that you're in. I would also say that games are a very safe environment just generally because failure is built in. So if you're tackling a really tough topic, maybe it's just a challenge in the game, maybe it's a challenging idea, you can try something in the game, and if you fail, so worst case, you die in the game, but then you'll respawn again. And when you respawn, it's like a do-over. You get to learn from your mistakes the last time you played, come up with a better plan, and try it again. So it is actually this very contained place for experimentation and learning.
I'm going to add to that also, when you think about these complex issues, their systems very often, it's about understanding those systems, and the games themselves are a system. And there's an approach from a game design standpoint that allows the player to gain mastery over something, and you only can do that by understanding, right? And you can fail, and then you can try again, and through that trial and error, you are gaining a better understanding of that system and or that issue. That and the agency, as you said, in the game, which I think is really powerful, particularly if these big social critical issues, many people feel powerless, right? So you're able to have that impact in that way. I want to talk about address this question about how we measure the success of cross-sector partnerships, both on the educational outcomes, but also broader social impact. Do you want to address that, or?
I think in terms of educational outcomes, you probably would be better answering that.
So I would say whenever we set out to create a new learning experience, like a new map, a new game, we really define what those learning outcomes are from the very beginning, and then we iterate with our game designers plus with our partners to make sure that the activities that the students do in the game are actually going to help achieve those learning outcomes. So we measure success based off of, honestly, how many times the game is played and how long people stay in it, because there's our evidence that the learning outcomes are actually there, and educators find it valuable, students find it valuable, and so I would say those would be two of them, and I think...
I could talk about the broader social impact. I just wanted you to be able to answer things that are pertinent to how you set it up, but on the social impact part of it, we actually do surveys and get feedback from the students and from their parents and from the teachers. And in terms of, for instance, the monarch butterfly and the patterns going back and forth to Mexico, and what that pattern is being pushed back on by climate change and other things, that youth actually feel as though they're doing something to help the butterflies, or in terms of social justice, or in terms of natural disasters that are happening every single day. Look what's happening in South Carolina right now, and what happens in California and everywhere, so that they don't feel powerless. And that's the key to all of this. And this is not the time for inertia, and especially now that you're almost filling gaps. And one of the challenges that we have in the nonprofit sector, or you have in education and everywhere else, is how do you give hope? How do you make someone feel as though they're taking action and doing something about the current situation? And as a young person, to be able to do that at 10 years old or at 12 or 14 years old, it is remarkable to be able to nourish that feeling of activism and feeling as though they can do something about it. So our measurement is through actually feedback, and we get a lot of feedback in terms of how they felt that they made a difference. And then how do they transition into the real world from the Minecraft world? And that is where the real impact of these games socially are going to take place.
The next question that I want to bring up is for you, Tony, and it's similar to, or it's connected to what you were just talking about. You said that you take ideas from students and youth. What are the issues that you're hearing from students now? It's a loaded question.
No, it's loaded for the right reasons, and I think it's the same issues that their parents and that their communities are feeling. I think social justice issues. We use the term authenticity. What is the authenticity of what they heard 5 years ago versus what they're hearing now on some of those issues? I think the other one is the climate change is another huge issue that we continue to hear, as well as being able to impact some of these areas on education. What are those gaps that we need to fill? And they're able to give us that guidance in terms of what needs to be filled. We've always said that what we wanted to focus on is the needs and wants of our community, and we're able to get that guidance from them. But they're doing it in such a clever way that we need to nourish that opportunity for them to be able to create. But those are the biggest issues we're seeing in terms of humanity, treating people with a humanity, appreciating the plight of somebody that is looking for a better life. And so all of those things can be honored through some of the programs that we put together, because I've always said that we have to listen to youth, and provided with a platform like Minecraft, or provided with a device and access to Wi-Fi, a 15 or 14 or 12-year-old can reach more people than Gandhi, Martin Luther King, and Cesar Chavez in their lifetimes combined in a split second. And this is able, through technology, to be able to not just empower them, but to actually leverage that power and that creativity to real social change. But it starts when you can start someone at that young age and have them build community. That's the other part of this, that they're actually building community. And it's really powerful, but we have to listen to them as the starting point in order to better serve.
All right, I'm going to go. There's so many questions here, and we've got about 7 minutes left, so I'm going to try to get through them. Here's a very tactical kind of question. What strategies or resources are most helpful in expanding a program to a national and global audience? I talked earlier about this kind of build it slowly, build it, test it, iterate, see how it improved, stress test it as you find other partners. I think that for me, that has, and for our organization, that really has worked. But I'm curious if either one of you have other comments on that.
Sure, I would just add on to that. So starting small, experimenting. The beauty of that is that you start to learn what the stakeholders need in order to be able to go run the program. So what we've done in many cases is when we know that we're going to be able to run a program as a first party, like from the studio, for a period of time, but we're not going to be able to manage it indefinitely, we make sure that we learn those key elements that we're providing that we should just put into a do-it-yourself kit. And so
a toolkit of sorts.
A toolkit that can include access to in our case, access to the Minecraft world, the educator resources, maybe a walkthrough video, potentially like a rubric or something else that's then in a kit that then somebody can take and run with.
If you don't mind, can I jump to a question
Go
that I
for
think
it.
is really relevant to right now? And I think Sarah has asked, I'll combine them, but how do you maintain momentum and engagement after launch, particularly once funding ends?
Yep.
That's a real question. And I'm a small nonprofit with limited resources. How do I begin collaborating with larger organizations? I think it comes down to what Allison was saying earlier and what we were all saying in terms of leveraging what you can bring to that relationship. A large organization is as good as the local organization on the ground. You can create amazing curriculum, you could have amazing content. If nobody is using it, it's going to gather virtual dust on a shelf. And that's the part where the local smaller organizations come in and can actually be the activator for a lot of these programs. I think it's also really hard right now because funding is scarce and it's getting more scarce in terms of what some of our missions are. But this is where funding should never get in the way of impact. And there are really creative ways to make that impact. And I'll give you an example. There's a local organization called the Puede Network in Dallas, in Oak Cliff, that a guy named Adan Gonzalez runs. Every time we do anything in Dallas, we call him because he has access to about 300 young people and another couple hundred families. So it allows us to activate locally in order to impact things globally by being able to work with them. So we'll bring the game or we'll work our coding programs or whatever it is. But as national organizations, we're as good as somebody is locally. And you actually give us an opportunity to leverage what we do thanks to you. And so just have to be really clever and creative, and don't let funding get in the way of the impact you're trying to make. I know that sounds contrary because you have to at least be able to function, but in terms of really being resourceful in terms of what you can access, I see Brendan's out here. We started our Code as Second Language program by just leveraging curriculum that existed online, and then we were able to work with a bunch of volunteers from the tech sector and start that program in East LA, and then it became a program that just finished 100,000 kids that have been taught how to code through that program. We had $0. I think I bought pizza, and our chairman, Emmanuel Pleites, and then we took pictures of it and used it as a starting point for a bigger program that we had. So everything you can imagine can be real. You just have to be resourceful. You have to be resilient. This is the time to be resourceful and resilient.
And I think that the local partnerships, the partnership model doesn't have to be with a large organization, with a small startup, not-for-profit. There are ways to partner with peer organizations that are doing similar things, perhaps in a different region, or has a different expertise that's serving that same demographic, right? That same student population. And those kind of creative partnerships, I think, add to the value proposition that can then be brought to perhaps some other funders. And we, as a small not-for-profit, because we're on the smaller side, it may seem large to some, but we've had to apply all of these strategies in order to achieve what we wanted to achieve. I'd be happy to talk to anyone about that process, because I feel like we've been in startup mode for about 20 years. I don't know any not-for-profit that doesn't feel that way. But, okay, so we have about 1.5 minutes. I think probably is best served with some parting thoughts. Or did we do that already? Did we do our big takeaways? How about just encouragement? How about a few words of encouragement? Things are challenging, absolutely. We all have involved in projects that are utilizing such a powerful tool to connect with kids. What would you suggest about the best use? Let's think about this, about best use of bringing this into the classroom. I will. I'll answer that for you. So it's about, what I'm trying to say is how to bring, what's your loss? How can we encourage people in the audience and viewers that are listening to leverage not only Minecraft, but other game-based learning or opportunities to engage with students? I think that there are so many opportunities out there. I think I'm doing the closing statement for everyone, so I apologize about that. There are so many opportunities that are out there that can just be tapped, and taking that leap of meeting students where they are. And I think that's really what we're trying to say here. And it's not just for fun, right? There's so many incredible learning moments and opportunities within these platforms, whether it's Minecraft or other games or creating games, right? Or creating pathways for career paths. I mean, all of the work that you're doing is demonstrating, I think, future successful engagement opportunities with kids. All right, did I wrap it up? All right, thank you everybody for joining us.